The biggest headline for us right now is CPI data coming in at 3.4%. But more encouragingly, of course, is the fact that for the week ended of January 13th, the number of state unemployment benefits dropped 16,000 or so. So employment is holding up better than what economists had predicted earlier in 2023. And of course, December 2023 was more resilient than people expected as well. And all of these things are holding some faith in the possibility of a soft landing. We're not fully there yet, of course, but it's part of the reason why Treasury yields have continued to fall into 2023, and accordingly, the S&P 500 has crept forwards to its to an all-time high as well. Probably the biggest concern for us right now, but something that has always played a part in our thinking as a firm. The reason why we've always been so geographically conscious and diversified are the latest occurrences of instability happening in the Red Sea, disrupting trading activity. That graph on the right-hand side there just demonstrating a very large spike in the Shanghai containerized freight index as a result of Houthi attacks on shipping routes. We're all aware of that, of course, and that's part of the reason why at MarketX we like to deliver global deal flow that actually is benefiting from an increasingly multipolar and potentially fractured world as well. And then just kind of looking forward in terms of how this all applies to us. That fall in Treasury yields, of course, as we're all aware, has resulted in a subtle warming of the IPO pipeline. Here at MarketX, we've invested in a number of names that stand to exit in the next couple of months. Rubrik is one. Klarna and Stripe are both two other names that we're expecting will go public in the near term future. And beyond that as well, in looking at Korea, we've invested in TOS over the past few years, and we're nearing an exit once more for TOS as well, which we're excited about. And in terms of where we're thinking the pricing will take place, we're actually getting more encouraging data now that from Goldman Sachs, looking at their kind of buy side clients, we're getting firming data in terms of where the pricing will be. Nearly 50% of those kind of buy side clients on the mutual fund and hedge fund side are kind of indicating a kind of an IPO discount to traded peers around 15 to 20%. And we think once that IPO market begins to start rolling, we'll see that kind of the pickup in VC deal activity and more companies looking for primaries. What we've seen so far in the first part of 2024 is small rounds with companies looking to bridge themselves to the end of 2024, looking at 2025 for a larger fundraising. And with that, I'll hand over to my colleague John to go through some fintech names.
Thanks, Cal. So I'd like to start off with a brief kind of overview as to the space. So institutional investment, there's been a lot of, I would say, hype around how we can automate things, how we can make things operate more quickly, more efficiently, and frankly, cheaper. So the institutional investment market has really grown rapidly over the last decade. And now really we're seeing a total addressable market of about 50 billion. This is looking at asset managers, pension funds, universities, corporations with that type of function. And all of them are looking for an edge in their investment process, whether that's deploying a new strategy, deploying a new type of analyzing data, taking over the investment process and making it more unbiased. They're all looking for new ways to do that. So really right here, what we're kind of focusing on is how AI can affect the investment process and the flow of data. And these types of businesses have increasingly been relying on quantitative analytics in order to help and even automate the investment process and decision-making process. And the reason for that is, humans have biases that will always come into play. That's not a bad thing, but when it comes to the investment process and you're looking to do things based on a solely fundamental basis, taking biases out can be very important. So two businesses that we really kind of like in this space are Boosted AI and AlphaSense. Boosted AI is an early stage machine learning and artificial intelligence company focusing on augmented investment processes. Um, they most recently raised a Series B in 2022, so they're well capitalized. They have a number of tier one investors in their cap stack, including Spark and Protosh. Um, the company allows customers to download or ingest all forms of data and apply predictive analytics, back testing on portfolios, securities, asset classes, basically a full data analytics platform for any of your needs, whether it's, ingesting, back testing, any type of analysis that you're interested in kind of applying to your process. Um, Boosted AI allows users to apply the same level of AI data analytics normally done from a sophisticated team from a single platform. So we're talking, few $1,000s a year for the same type of analytical capability that would cost, multiple data engineers. Not only just time, but dollars as well. So it's a near and long term solution. Um, AlphaSense is a slightly different business, far more mature. Um, it's a company specializing in artificial intelligence and natural language processing. The company provides an AI analytics and market intelligence platform across an extensive range of market data, financial documents, industry reports, basically anything that has information or economic uh, know-how that can be applied to whether it's investments, strategic decision making, but overall just general guidance. So slightly different from boosted AI, they focus on information as opposed to hard code data analytics. Um, AlphaSense will use data analytics, but more so in the context of information as opposed to raw data. As I mentioned prior, the business is quite mature and well capitalized, having raised over $750 million from a number of tier one investors. But their real kind of pull is that they've raised money from the top financial institutions. So we're talking Citigroup, Citi Ventures, Wells Fargo, a number of other kind of global financial institutions in the space, and that's very powerful because it shows that they're the platform of choice for data when it comes to, I should say, AI analytics when it comes to information. Um, the space is something that is continuously evolving, and we're seeing AI, develop in different levels in the fintech space. This was specifically related to really, we'll call it the wealth tech subvertical. Um, but we're seeing this layer of AI being deployed in terms of process automation, uh, cost savings, basically anything that can provide a far more accurate, less biased, and faster result. I'll hand it off to my colleague Cal to take step on to the next section.
Thanks, John. And so that, of course, begs the question, once we go through kind of fintech and applications related there, what exactly is the infrastructure they're all running on? We're all aware of the kind of plethora of AI applications that have come onto the market, but what has taken place at the same time is there's been a definite constraint in the supply of hardware capable of handling both AI inference and AI model training as well. That, of course, has been kind of in tandem with the fact that the latest GPUs produced by the likes of NVIDIA haven't actually resulted in any increase in efficiency when comparing the H100 of this year with the A100 last year. It's more powerful, and compute goes up, but the actual cost per operation remains the same. And so, looking ahead, we're increasingly cognizant of the fact that a supply of computing infrastructure, whether it's GPUs or ASICs or any other kind of infrastructure capable of actually handling the AI training in the first place, the supply has to increase. And NVIDIA probably can't handle that all on their own. And we're also anticipating the fact that that architecture will move away from being kind of CPU or GPU centric and we'll start finding new and more novel ways of increasing efficiency, perhaps by looking at memory in more innovative ways. On the right-hand side, we can see the graph here just pointing to just how expensive a number of the most kind of prominent models on the market are today, comparing GPT with Claude and others. It's pretty obvious that we need to find a new solution in producing AI going forward as well. One company we've already invested in the space is a company called New Reality. New Reality produce a system on a chip that essentially removes the CPU and CPU related kind of parts of the hardware that move data from the Ethernet cables to the ASICs on the chip itself, where the compute takes place. New Reality essentially kind of makes that flow of data and increases the bandwidth by a measure of 10 times, which results in a 10 times improvement in cost. And well over 13 times in energy efficiency as well, compared to kind of CPU-centric architectures. We're very kind of excited about what we've done with New Reality. They've now got through the design phase with TSMC, and production is now starting. And they've got kind of collaborations with the likes of IBM, ARM, and others kind of that should help production scale pretty quickly in the coming year. In terms of kind of breaking down where we think the opportunities will be, AI-centric memory architecture, following in line with New Reality, is something we're kind of keen on exploring. There are two possible routes for doing so. One is increasing the size of the silicon and just kind of putting more static random access memory right next to the compute, which again which increases the bandwidth and removes the amount of things in between the compute and the memory storage. Or we can find more novel ways that, like New Reality, that remove switches and hops between compute and memory as well. Another area that we want to draw your attention to on the webinar is just how prevalent we think supercomputing will be in the AI space as well. What we think will take place moving forwards is that supercomputers will be increasingly demanded by the very largest enterprises in the world, where they look to train their own AI models, that they don't want to do so in the cloud, but kind of handling on their own supercomputers is a step too far in terms of infrastructure management for them, and probably too large an expense. And so they partner with the likes of Cerebras, as we have here, to manage kind of dedicated supercomputers on their behalf. With Cerebras, we've seen some kind of extremely impressive kind of steps forward, and very in differentiated thinking in terms of AI architecture. But it all started with the wafer scale engine, which is a chip that's just massive in terms of compute compared to NVIDIA or other players in the market, and it's gone on from there in terms of further innovation. We've seen the Condor Galaxy, which is now the biggest and most powerful supercomputer in the world, and that's resulted in commercial traction as well. They've scaled to well over $100 million in revenue. And they're partnering with the likes of GSK and some of the biggest hospitals in America for building LLM models in healthcare as well. All of these healthcare providers want their own dedicated supercomputing resource, and Cerebras is the top name in the space. And in terms of how they do this, and in terms of further advantages they offer to their customers, again, there's a focus on memory. It's not simply about just increasing the amount of performance. It's also about having more flexible memory architecture that customers really desire for scaling up their infrastructure. Traditional GPU systems encounter a lot of inefficiencies related between memory and processing, and Cerebras addresses this by putting SRAM directly next to the processing units, resulting in a 200 times increase in the speed in which data flows to the compute. And then just on the right hand side, in practical terms, Cerebras' supercomputers also offer a huge increase in the ease of deployment on their servers versus kind of NVIDIA related architecture as well. To deploy a GPT-3 size model requires about 20,000 lines of code for developers at the companies that want to do them, and that decreases to 565. It's just on Cerebras' new supercomputer. It's just a much better way of deploying large language models. And then just before I kind of hand off to Cathryn and Tim in a second, we just wanted to kind of pull everybody's attention to legal AI. as well. Just
Or can
similar.
I just chime in for 1 second? I just wanted to remind everyone next month for our February 6th webinar, we'll also have Moshi Tanek, the founder and CEO of New Reality, joining us for the webinar. So just please stay tuned and join us next month as well.
Yeah, thank you, Cathryn. And so just in terms of legal AI, a similar story to fintech, where the artificial intelligence just goes beyond the realms of what's typically done by professionals in the space right now. With legal AI, so far there's been a focus on risk identification, looking at language contained in clauses and contracts and making sure that they're watertight. In addition to search being especially prevalent as well, looking at both document discovery and then identifying core precedents and cases as well. On the right-hand side, we're seeing that AI is gaining traction in terms of legal workflow as well. Now, over 40% of lawyers surveyed in LexisNexis's AI survey have used AI in their workflow, and a further 24% plan to use it for workflow as well. In terms of where they're doing so, researching matters is the most popular use case so far, followed by kind of drafting of documents and writing emails. That front foot workflow where lawyers are now incorporating AI right across their daily activities. Now, one name in the space that has done especially well in partnering with some of the best law firms in the world is Harvey. They've most recently raised a very large fundraising. But going forwards as well, we think that there's very key strategic partnerships that they've secured with the likes of OpenAI that firstly that have resulted in increased investment, but have also allowed preferential access to OpenAI's models as well. And then before we kind of talk about Harvey in further detail, Ironclad is also another name worth mentioning as well. Ironclad it has always existed as a legal SaaS company, but is increasingly focused on AI and automating the contract data extraction process, typically done by lawyers. That's manual and time consuming. Review of contracts, again looking at the analysis and understanding where risk may be that human legal professionals may have missed. Negotiation and analysis as well. Ironclad are invested in by some of the best in the world. And we're excited about what Ironclad is doing in terms of increasing its offering by incorporating AI further. In terms of kind of very tangible terms as to why AI offers a lot on a strategic benefit, we can see on the left-hand side that McFarlane's are one such law firm who've incorporated Harvey inside their workflow. Initially, the firm had deployed Harvey with 15% of fee earners, but this was swiftly followed by a firm-wide rollout following the success of the technology in reducing the amount of kind of heavy, burdensome, non-billable hour generating work. And so on the right-hand side, a very quick little model here demonstrates that a 25% reduction in non-billable hours that AI tools like Harvey can generate results in additional revenue opportunities of around about $375,000. And that's exactly why Allen and Overy and McFarlane's law firms such as those are increasingly adopting the technology. And before I kind of quickly hand over to Cathryn and Tim, we just wanted to kind of introduce customer service AI as an area again for further interest. Modern customers, as we all know, want seamless and quick responses in real time, and human interactions to do so are expensive and burdensome and often inefficient. Beyond that, computers and AI can also offer insights that we just can't generate on a massive scale across a sales organization as well. Kind of moving forwards, where we think the growth drivers will be in this little segment will be potential customers looking to reduce processing time, customers wanting instant responses, and implementing AI chatbots to reduce the amount of sales team required at all times. And so with that, I'll hand over to Cathryn and Tim.
Great, thanks, Cal. Hi, Tim. Tim is a founder and CTO of Cresta. We can maybe start with Tim for you to give a little introduction about your company and yourself.
Sure, yeah. So Cresta was founded about 6 years ago from the Stanford AI Lab, and we had this vision of enabling people to be 10x more productive with AI and using AI to augment humans instead of replacing them. And we're looking at areas where AI could have a lot of impact, and contact center or customer service came into our radar because it's an area where there's a lot of data right? That AI can train on and become powerful. And there's also a lot of business opportunity. So this intersection of cutting edge tech and market opportunity. So we started off building like first product with Intuit is our first customer, and we built this real time suggestion recommendation engine where as customer agents speak, we'll recommend in real time what to say, how to say things, so that their conversation becomes everyone's conversation becomes the top performer. So we've been doing this for many years. We deployed like almost the first generative AI model back into 2019. And then ever since, we've been leveraging latest technology to sort of accelerate our sort of product. Yeah, so today I'm super excited to be here and talk about like what we think 2024 is going to be like, and then what are the trends in the application layer of generative AI.
Great. Thanks, Tim. First of all, my very much appreciate you joining our annual LP Summit last September. And we're looking forward to, of course, having you again. So my first question about this current state, which a lot of our investors have been wondering, is, quite a few companies have raised a lot of money, right? We're looking at the latest, I guess drama was OpenAI. Anthropic just raised at the, some people will argue pretty high valuation. And then we also have quite a few smaller, maybe Series A, Series B companies still raising a lot, despite 2023 have been a relatively hard year for most companies to raise. So what do you think is really are the top drivers for Gen AI at this moment, and how, as a founder, and obviously you guys are doing very well here, what do you think really makes a company stand out in this current stage of the AI development cycle?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that generative AI just unlocks so much value. When we look at everything that a human could do, right, and the LLMs like GPT-4 can do some of it. So like repetitive workflows can be automated, and humans can be free to work on more creative things or like harder things, and their workflow can also be amplified by AI through augmentation. So what we see here is that businesses are buying AI because they can reduce like their cost or increase their top line revenue, and this is real, right? So we've seen like in the customer service space, we have seen in the legal space, in like almost all these different industries that AI is driving a lot of value, and then there are companies who uh, just raise Series A and can be at like millions of revenue, right? So that's sort of proof that there's a lot of value in the space that can be tapped through like generative AI.
Great. Can you give us some main examples as to why certain companies are doing well and why certain companies are not doing so well in a Gen AI space? Like what typical perhaps like product features or areas that has taken off quite fast? Given a lot of companies have been trying to launch new products this year. I mean, I know it's only end of January right now, but what do you see as the most exciting areas? If you're an investor, what would you be interested in investing in?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of use cases around like Copilot. Like if you think about Gen AI, right, there's a lot of risk around the people concerned about like hallucination and um, like whether it can actually be factual, right, be able to like and then there's also a lot of risk, right, if you connect it to like databases or to connect to different systems. What if the AI did thing that did something that is not aligned with the human's intent? And that's where we think that Copilot as a paradigm is a powerful one for now, where AI can be rolled out into the world with a lot of human guidance, and then can deploy AI in an incremental way where you roll out AI, but with in a way that assists humans, but as a way to collect feedback with the AI as well, right? So that AI can get better over time and be able to get its evaluation on a human sort of feedback data set. And this can already generate a lot of value, right? So we've seen like in the legal space where there are companies building AI for assisting lawyers, right? So you can save lawyers like hours of work, and those can be very, very expensive hours. And so that's value that a Copilot paradigm can generate. Yeah, so we've seen a lot of sort of examples where this paradigm generate value.
Gotcha. Another, I guess, typical, question we receive is that when you think about fundraising in the Gen AI space, some companies are raising billions even as the first round. I think we all know Elon Musk is raising a new $1 billion for his, kind of large language model. And also, I believe Sam Altman is out there talking about raising billions for building new fab, right? Given the latest geopolitical situation and what we see as a potential demand, not meeting with current fab services providers. What are your predictions for 2024? Where do you think the majority of the investment and also majority of the talent, working on really, problems that is going to solve some of these most important issues?
Yeah, I think that 2023 really see a huge, amount of capital going to the infrastructure layer. And 2024 is really where I think applications will take off. I think in 2023, when ChatGPT first came out, people were super excited, and there's a money going to like these foundation model companies, right? And these companies like OpenAI and Anthropic raising like billions of dollars. Those deals are typically structured in the way that it will, include, certain amount of, a, a fraction of contract right to be spent on compute, because training these models are computational expensive. So almost like a huge capex sort of investment to build these models, and then with the hope that these models can generate revenue, which I think OpenAI did pretty well, right, in billions of revenue. But as we build out the infrastructure layer, I think more and more of these applications will become more readily available. Right now, I think we have last year we have the foundation models, we have the open source, we have a lot of infrastructure players like vector databases and LangChain, Llama Index. All these tools are available, and people are building applications now on top that could really unlock the value. Yeah, I think that when ChatGPT first came out, that people think that one model can be rule it out, right? But we increasingly see more like the concept of unbundling the AI, whereas you take the ChatGPT and figure out like what are the use cases where it can be generate a lot of value, and you can build workflows around that use cases, sort of like specialized AI for that particular use case. And kind of like how SaaS companies are unbundling, right, the spreadsheet into like different workflows. We see like the unbundling of AI into different apps or different AI native tools, so that it can unlock more value.
Great. And also just for your own company, like in terms of your product development this year, what do you see are the most important, potentially challenges and areas that you're facing, perhaps some pushbacks from your customers? What are some, learnings that you have so far achieved from the last few years, observing how the market has moved? What would you say, to your team, let's say, are the areas for you guys to focus in order to, stay competitive in this market?
Yeah, I would say that we've been building our sort of in-house sort of vertically integrated model. We call it domain adaptive, right? Ocean models. And these models are sort of can fine tune and learn on customers' data and be able to plug into like different CRMs and databases, knowledge bases, and really leverage the private data. And I think this is going to be also a trend that we'll see increasingly, that LLMs will be able to leverage, right, private data to be really useful for large enterprises. Because ChatGPT is a model trained on public internet, and it has a lot of knowledge about history, science, about how Roman Empire works, right? But a lot of those knowledges are actually not needed for specific enterprise use cases. But instead, you need to have the knowledge and expertise of the particular domain. that requires you be able to watch how the experts in that domain work, right? So for us, it's like expert contact center agents and managers, and to watch their workflows and learn the nuances of each moment, how they react to these different nuanced situations, and then gain that expertise. So that requires almost like a 10,000-hour rule kind of learning and training. And also there's the knowledge aspect, which is like how do you connect to their knowledge bases and know about their product and features and all this internal things that are documented, and be able to leverage the paradigm of retrieval augment generation, right? You retrieve articles and knowledge first, and then augment that sort of LLM with the information in real time. So these are sort of paradigms that we see that could unlock a lot of values for enterprise that are really looking to deploy generative AI. Yeah. Another thing we see is the concept of responsible AI really sort of shaping up in especially large enterprises, because people want to make sure they're actually deployed in a way that are responsible to their customers, their employees. So most companies, like large customers of ours, like United Airlines and American Express, they're looking to really form a team around responsible AI, and then have guardrails when they roll out AI. How will that impact their customers, right? So have the proper sort of incremental rollout sort of stages, and maybe have some QA and continuous evaluation. Yeah, so we're working with some of these partners to publish guidelines on sort of the best practice for responsible AI, and I think that will be more increasingly become an industry standard.
Oh, great. I see, Chintaya, you have a question? Feel free.
Hey, yeah, thanks, Cathryn. Hey, Tim. Quick question about the customer feedback paradigm for AI models, right? So I wonder how, you mentioned earlier shadowing industry experts and AI models improving. Do you see your customers willing to share what you learned? So, for example, you deployed with Intuit, and you basically the model improved based on the feedback. Is that something that is transferable to other customers, or how does the customer privacy fit in there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Most large enterprises are usually they don't want to share data with others. So we have a dedicated, usually data instance for a customer. We have for large enterprise deployments, we have single tenants, and we make sure their data is isolated, and we train model or only on their data. That being said, we do have a fraction of customers, actually a decent, like around maybe 50% of our customers, who are willing to contribute data to a shared community model. Those data we offer very extensive redaction, of course, basically redact PI sort of private information, and only leverage the conversations and the redacted audio for training. So I think that people see the benefit of community model, and they know that by contributing to the model, they can also get the benefit of better model down the road. Yeah.
Thanks, Chintaya, for asking the question. Awesome. Great. So we'll continue. The next step is for us to really understand, what do you see as some people might say the fluff in Gen AI right now, right? A lot of companies are raising money, but some people also say as long as you plug in the AI, quote, and you basically get lots of people to invest. Is that really the truth? How have you seen the boom bust cycle of AI so far in the last few years?
Yeah, I think that I see a similar pattern when we started in 2017, but back then it was self-driving cars. That there's a lot of excitement on AI around robotics and reinforcement learning and computer vision. I think there's always a cycle, right? There would be the supply and demand of capital. When some exciting technology, a paradigm shift happens, then there's more capital coming in, and then there's maybe more projects being started. So I think we're right now almost at a hype cycle. I think we have real technology platform shift. I think that LLMs is going to generate a lot of value. But there will also be a lot of companies that are more like a hype, right? So I think really it's about like teasing out if the business actually is going to work. Like, does it make sense for the end customer, like this product? Because at the end of the day, right, we're not just building AI that is going to be the purpose, right? And the goal is to drive value for our customers, is build a useful product. So we'll look at the team and look at the product and see if it will make sense in this particular, like the market they're targeting, and what's their go-to-market strategy, right? Is the team equipped and talented to be able to tackle the market?
Yeah, that's really well said. It's all about adding value to the end customer. But in terms of, let's say, internal metrics, right? As an AI company, when we look into what company makes, the best, let's say, value add here, and also how do you, find the right people to help you build a company? I'm just curious, what do you see as the most important areas for your company's metrics? Like, how do you know you guys are making progress on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, we actually seen a lot of generative AI companies in the space. I think compared to like normal hype cycles, I think this cycle actually there are a lot of companies focusing on revenue and driving value for customers. A lot of it's also because of the interest rate environment, right? You have to have a real solid business metrics, like real top line growth, real healthy margin, and be able to see be able to like invest in areas that help you grow. So I think it all depends on the company stage, right? So, but surprisingly, there's a lot of early stage companies today actually are making money, and they can have like a pretty high, sort of a revenue per employee. So there's a lot of good signs there. I'm pretty optimistic about the market.
Gotcha. Also, I don't know if everyone know here, but Cresta has raised over 150 million. Is that correct?
Yes.
From the latest Series C, Sequoia, many of the top, investors, Tiger are all part of it. How were you guys able to achieve such, grand success? Just for the founders in the audience, maybe you can give us some tips on, how do you really run the financial, fundraising aspect of the business? Clearly, some people do really well and some people may have some more trouble. So can you give us some tips on that?
Yeah. I think in ever since like the beginning of the company, we really focus on like even though like our background are PhD students, we really focus on like growing the company and making real business fundamentals, right? So we like when we were building the product, the first customers were into it, and really focus on like what the customer need and how do we build the product and the AI in the way that could help Intuit make money. And we figure out like how do we get them to sign an enterprise contract. So a lot of it is like selling and build like marketing and figuring out like that go to market motion. And in the meanwhile, like figuring the right product for this market. Yeah, so I think we've been focusing a lot on our customers. I think that's I think the fundraising and then revenue is just like a outcome of focusing on the customers.
Great. Thanks, Tim. I see that Altaf, you have a question. Feel free to speak up.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I think it was an incredible session. Thank you very much. Shi, I have a question for you. It's actually a request more than a question. If I give you three terms and ask you to use them in a sentence, term number one is AI, generative AI. Term two is tokenization, and term three is cryptocurrencies. What sentence would you put together? Because the only sentence I've been hearing for the last few years is tokenization isn't going to be possible because AI, generative AI, isn't at the level where it needs to be for cryptocurrencies to be able to benefit from it. How would you use these three terms looking at the future?
That's a really good question. It's gonna be a hard one. Yeah, I think that I mean we're at the peaks or almost like a cycle of AI, right? But there's also a lot of signs that the crypto market is kind of come back. I do think that there's a lot of things that people can do with decentralized AI, where today like a lot of AGI companies are in the hands of very few companies, right? like the OpenAI drama told us that it's actually not very safe to have an AGI that, in the hands of like a few board members that maybe the incentives are not aligned with the company. But I do believe that the AI AGI that ideally can be decentralized. There are a lot of actual innovation in the space that people are building things like ZKML, right, zero knowledge proof, but applied to machine learning. But the computation required for these kind of algorithms is pretty high. So because generative AI is so computationally expensive already, so it's still very early to be able to build, crypto blockchain technology around it. But maybe there's something that the space is inventing that in the next few years. So I'm looking forward to that.
All right,
All
thanks.
right.
Thanks, Otaf, for the very interesting question here. So on the next step, just curious, since you guys started in 2020, right, and it's only been 3-4 years, which is a very short time for you to reach such an amazing progress levels. So in terms of what do you think are the things that really gone right for you? What would you say, as lessons for future founders and also for investors when we look at these type of, hockey growth? What do you think really are the best, decisions you made in the last 3 years?
I think one important decision is to really focus on when we're like sort of finding product market fit and finding like an inflection point for scaling. It's really about focus because AI can be applied to so many things, and especially with enterprise customers, they have so many different requests and needs. So it's really about finding a market segment that your product can work very well and you can repeatedly take that product to many customers. And for us, the initial segment was actually not customer service. It was actually for B2C sales. So like, United Airlines selling like, flights, or, American Express selling credit cards. And we built it specifically for chat, right? So there are many different channels, right? Chat, voice, SM messaging, and there are many different use cases for contact centers, customer service, sales, retention, maybe collections. So we really we created some matrix of like use cases, channels, and different customer segments, and then pick one thing to start, and then more like accumulate customers within that segment. And that's and once you can sort of get to almost like a dominating position in a segment, then you can expand. That's where we started expanding into different channels. Right now we have a voice product. Now we're not only doing sales, we're only doing customer care, right? So it becomes more of a holistic kind of a solution, and you can start with start customers in a journey of like one use case, and they can land one use case and expand into different use cases, and it become more of a sticky product once they start using your product for different things.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim, for advice. And last question for today's discussion. Given that we are right now also looking at quite a few niche areas for AI, there has been, quite a bit of deployment in infrastructure. We're looking at an application layer, a lot of it going to financial services, legal. These seems to be the winning spots, and also marketing, even video editing. There's been quite a bit of investment going there. How do you see, let's say the next 5-10 years, right? Some people talk about, I think, if you read the Davos discussion, folks are like, this is, harder to determine how humanity approaches AI, because as it gets to, the same intelligence as a human, we have a lot to worry about. So if you have to give prediction as for the next 5-10 years, which are the areas are the most important for us to invest in, and also which areas do you think is a little bit too far off, and perhaps from a just like generating real value for the customer and for responsibility, right? How do we think about that? What are your predictions?
Yeah, I think it's similar to when we started Cresta. We had this vision of finding repetitive work, knowledge work, and then using AI to automate it so that humans can be more freed from those repetitive work, right? And I think with today, like with LLMs and with these foundation models, it can be built, like it's much easier to build like products for these use cases. So I will look at areas and markets where there is a lot of repetitive work, especially knowledge work, and AI could probably make impact there. So I think that within the next 5 to 10 years, there are probably a lot of expensive services today, like legal services and healthcare and a lot of things that were expensive and inaccessible to most people cheaply, can be made like much less expensive, right? So because with AI, we can almost take knowledge, expertise, and locked that required to in those like experts, because lawyers and doctors take like years to train, and you can really use AI to amplify that, and then create like copies of these experts to handle like different like to provide these services in a very cheap way.
Yeah. Also, thanks, Tim, for joining us. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, really good conversation there. Thank you for that. And so we've kind of divided up our kind of secondaries pipeline from a few different areas. We've got offerings in Cerebras at the moment, right down to the likes of Astera Labs and Fabrica. A number of them dealing with the kind of the memory bottlenecks that we think are especially interesting and pressing in terms of actually dealing with the market itself. In terms of fintech AI names, we also have the likes of AlphaSense, Alloy, Tegus, and Figure on the market right now. Alloy, just to kind of pick on one example, is an identity verification platform designed to check frauds and increase overall security. And Tegus is a site we all use and find integral in terms of our research. And again, we've got an offering at a steep discount to one of the previous rounds there as well. From the legal AI perspective, we've got a couple of names that we wanted to bring to everybody's attention. Everlaw, again, a seasoned name in the area, and Ironclad as well. We have another offering in as well. Yeah, that's kind of the generative AI names that we have on offer right now.
Great. And then lastly, we just want to also remind everyone, this week we're focusing on 3 live deals. If you go on our portal, you will see that we have TrueWork, we also have SpaceX, and also Builder.ai as the latest live deals. Builder is a company that we have gone through in the last session. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. And last but not least, we'll have our head of marketing and business development, Ben Walker, walk us through what's the latest on AI Ventures.
Thanks, Cathryn. And no, thanks for everyone's patience on the webinar as well. It's a good turnout and obviously good conversation there. Now, you would have heard from me probably this week via LinkedIn or via email, and you'll hear from me again after the session. We'll send across the decks that we presented with a little bit more information on some of these secondary deals, and also more information on the companies that were featured here. In general, as you know, we deal with a lot of secondaries, kind of late stage, pre-IPO. And as Cathryn demonstrated in the beginning, there's now a pathway to more IPOs this year in 2024, knowing there's been a bit of a bottleneck in the last couple of years. Also, our fund, which is an early and late stage fund called AI Ventures, is now raising towards a first close at the end of this month. So we'll include some information on that as well. We're going to be investing across fintech, deep tech, vertical SaaS, much of what we've covered here. And if anyone has any questions on the webinar in general, on our fund, or on some of the secondaries, feel free to reach out to me, ben@marketxventures.com. You've probably already got me in your inbox somewhere, so just reply and I can send across any information required.
And also just to chime in here, beginning of this year, we're definitely seeing activities picking up again. Even as a fund, we've actually committed to 4 deals so far. As you have seen, we are very excited about Gen AI and potential application layer companies, such as we've invested in CoFrame. This is AI to automate UI UX. We've also invested in a company in Israel that's continuing with their AI for marketing aspect. On the other hand, we have invested in a company, as I mentioned earlier, TrueWork, which is income verification. And on top of that, we have now a deal that's focusing on the hardware infrastructure layer. We mentioned about Cerebra, this is a company that we see, potentially have great value given the discount we have received on the secondary market, 50%. And as we go forward, and the next webinar, we're going to talk about what we see are the key issues existing in the current AI market, also in the secondaries market. So feel free to sign up for next month's webinar on February 6th, same time at this hour. Feel free to let us know any feedback regarding our webinar, anything we can do better. Again, very much appreciate your time today, and we look forward to see you next month. Thanks, everyone.